Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to analyze another game from the tournament that I played, and I think that this game is a game without any big mistakes, and I really think it's a pretty beautiful one, and that's why I wanted to show you this game. Okay, so I was white and I started with c4 like I always do, and he played e5. Now in this game, as you're going to see, there was a lot of opening theory, so that's also maybe one reason why the game had almost no mistakes. So yeah, that's maybe also one reason. But okay, I played the g3 here, and he played knight f6. This is English opening mainline and nothing so special yet, so I just played bishop to g2, developing my bishop, and he striked at the center with d5. Now here of course he has many other lines, for example bishop to c5. I mean people also play bishop to b4, but okay, it's not very good here. They could play like knight to c6, and everything is possible here, also d6, and there's a lot of options. But okay, he played d5, just striking at the center, and I took it. Well, he has to take it back, and he took it with his knight. And for a long time, I used to play knight to c3 here, but my opening repertoire just changed, and I no longer play this knight to c3 move. And the reason behind this is because he can take our knight here, and I take it back. And this is an okay position, but I actually don't want to exchange these two knights. I want to keep as many pieces on the board as possible. And this exchange here on c3 really doesn't give me anything that I would be proud of. It really just makes the position more drawn, I think. So that's why I play here knight to f3. That's my line. I attack the pawn here, as you can see, and he has to just protect it. Now here's one trick: if he plays e4 and attacks my knight, I don't move the knight anywhere. I just play queen to a4 check. He has to block the check, and I take this pawn here. And yeah, this is a pretty cool trick, but unfortunately he didn't fall for this, and he played knight to c6, defending the pawn. And okay, now I have to castle, I have time to do this, and he immediately played knight to b6. Now here, if he does something else, he doesn't have any other very good options. If he plays, for example, bishop to c5, watch the trick. I take this pawn here, and as you can see, now you probably can see what's the point here. I play d4, and I, of course, attack the bishop, and I also attack the knight. So that's pretty good for me here. And that's what I would have played if he played bishop to c5, but okay, he played knight to b6, which is still the main line that I prepared for. And now I can develop my knight to c3, because there's no longer a knight here on this d5 square. But okay, first I just played d3, which is the exact same thing. I'm going to play knight to c3 later. And okay, he played bishop to e7, just getting ready to castle, developing his bishop. And now I played knight to c3, developing my knight. Now after castles, I play bishop to e3. This is the square for my bishop, because as you can see, where is this bishop going to go? This is not a very good square for the bishop. It's not doing anything here. It really doesn't have many very good squares. So the best square is this e3 square. So that's why I played it here. And I also have a particular plan in mind, as you're going to see in just one move. So okay, we see bishop to e6, developing his other bishop. And now I have basically two plans. One plan is to play rook to c1 and put some pressure along this c file, and I also want to play like knight to a4 and knight to c5, putting my knight on a very good square, attacking the bishop. That's just one plan, but the other plan that I actually have chosen here in this game was with d4. Now this is a line where the game is pretty equal, or white has a really slight advantage. It's basically pretty close to a drawn position, but white has a little bit more chances. So here what is he going to do? He of course has to take the pawn, and I recapture it with a knight. And now as you're going to see, some exchanges happen. Here the best move for black is to just take this knight, because it's a very good knight. As you can see, it's also attacking this bishop, also threatening to take this knight because this bishop here is open. So that's why he just took it off, which is the best decision here. I of course don't take this knight with my queen and go into an endgame because I'm white, and black also has the majority here. As you can see on the queen side, he can create a passed pawn, and as you know, the queen side majority is better than the king side majority, and black has a queen side majority here. Back to our game. I took the knight with a bishop, of course. This is still opening theory. It's a pretty long one, and that's why probably there were no mistakes. In this position, as you can see, I'm just attacking his b7 pawn, so he has to protect it. Now the best way, of course, here is to just play c6. It makes the most sense, of course, better than defending it with a piece which can do another job. So okay, still theory, I played knight to e4, and my plan is of course I'm centralizing my knight, and where does he want to go? The place for this knight is of course here on c5. It will not only attack this bishop here, it will also attack this pawn on b7, and it's going to be a pretty annoying knight here. So okay, now the moves that I was prepared for were queen to c8 and queen to c7. But anyways, he didn't play this, he played bishop to d5, which I wasn't prepared for, and first I didn't know what to do, but of course I thought for a bit and decided to just play e3. That's the move that I want to play. With this move I just defend my bishop, and this structure is okay. I also like make some space for my pieces here, so it's a pretty good move. Another option would be queen to c2, and okay, you can see this pawn structure here. He has the majority on the queen side, which is better for him of course, but now he can't really use it. If we exchange a lot of pieces, then this majority is probably going to be a problem for me. But for now it isn't. So what is my plan on playing against this pawn structure? Now my ideal pawn structure in this position would be pawns on e4 and f4. That's on the king side, and on the queen side I actually want to play a4 and a5. But why do I want to play this? The point is that with those two pawns here on the queen side, I'm going to stop those three pawns on the queen side here, the majority, and the reason is because the pawn on this a5 square is actually protecting this b6 square in the future, of course. If he plays like move b6, then I can exchange these pawns, and if you can see this far, these two pawns here are actually going to be pretty weak, and I'm going to like attack them easier. So that's actually a deep plan here to put my pawn on this a5 square. I'm sorry if there is a big mess with those arrows and colors and everything. I played e3. Now he played his queen to d7, which is not a square for the king, for the queen, but it's not a big mistake or anything. It's just the fact that I'm going to play knight to c5 and I'm going to attack this queen, but otherwise this move is not a really big mistake. So now I played queen to c2, which is a pretty good square for the queen. I'm also connecting my rooks, which is always great. And okay, now he moved his rook, and I also moved my rook to the d file. Just putting my rook, on the open file, like you should always do, and on the same file as the queen is, which is very important, because we want to attack this queen as soon as possible. And that's also why he moved his queen to this e8 square. So the queen is not under, not direct, but indirect attack. And now finally I managed to move my knight to this c5 square like I wanted, allowing him to exchange the light squared bishops, which he did, and this is not a problem for me. Usually when you play the English opening, you have your fianchetto bishop, and you just don't want to trade your bishop because it's like gold, you know. But here in this position, it's not such a bad thing to exchange those bishops because my king is pretty safe here. And my bishop was just looking at this c6 pawn, so it was a pretty good exchange. And now he decided to also exchange his bishop for the knight because my knight is very good. As you can see, it's just attacking this b7 pawn, which is hardly going to be protected. Like, the only way is to protect it with a rook, which is of course very very bad and very very passive. So that's why he took my knight and I recapture it. And here, like we said before, my plan is actually to somehow play f4 and e4. These pawns are pretty good here, are like controlling a lot of useful squares and giving me space here around my king for my pieces, and these two squares are just really good for my pawns, just giving me more space and everything. And on the queen side, like we said, a4, a5, and also maybe a6 in the future, because if he plays b6, this a7 pawn is probably going to be weak in the future when I play, like, for example, if I manage to play rook to the 7th rank, then this pawn is really going to be very weak. So this is my plan with pawns, but I didn't know this when I was playing the game. Yeah, so that's the other thing. If I knew this plan, I would immediately play e4. But okay, now black is on move, and he played queen to e6. Now, if I knew the plan, of course, I would play e4, and then if he attacks the pawn one more time, I just protect it. Now I achieved my pawn here on this e4 square. It's a pretty good pawn, and in the future, if my pawn is not going to be attacked, I can also play f4 and just, you know, like I said, a4, a5. So this would be nice, but unfortunately I didn't know this plan, and here after queen to e6, I just took the rook, he recaptured, and I played rook to d1. I wanted to exchange the rooks and play the endgame with a bishop against a knight, even though he has the majority on the queen side. So okay, he just played his rook to this d5 square, and now this position is like, it's really a draw. And I just changed my mind here, and I took the knight on b6. Maybe I shouldn't, but I think it's a draw anyways if I take the knight or not. So okay, I took it, and I played queen to a4. Now, what is the point? If he takes my rook here, there's mate on the back rank, because his back rank is very weak, as you can see. So he can't do this. He also can't move the rook anywhere, because, you know, it's going to be checkmate again. Or, I mean, I'm just going to win his queen, of course, which is enough. And he can't do anything except of creating some space for his king to go to. And he played g6. Now in queen endgames, the safety of the king is of course the most important thing. Because, you know, you can get under some perpetual checks and this would be annoying. And here the rooks are also on the board, so you have to be pretty careful with the safety of your king. In this position, I think my king is a little bit less safer, just a little bit, but nothing major. I think both kings are pretty safe. Now I decided to just take this rook off, and he took the rook with his queen, and with a check of course. So I had the option to move my king, or to just play e4 and attack the queen. And now, as you can probably predict, this position is a draw. You can see that black has his majority on the queen side here, but this majority is not very good. As you can see, he has those doubled pawns, and these are slowly going to move up the board, and it's going to take him a long time to actually do something with those three pawns. And here I'm just threatening to play queen to a8 check and then pick up this pawn here. So he has to protect it. He moved his queen to this d7 square. And okay, now what to do with white? I tried to improve the position of my queen and I played queen to b4. I also attacked his pawn, so he had to move it to this b5 square. And now I made the biggest mistake in the game that actually lasted 2 moves. A reasonable move in this position would be probably something like h4. This is always a useful move in the endgame, but I didn't play h4, I played queen to c3. And now this is a pretty bad move. My idea was to just bring the queen to a square such as e5 or f6, from where it's going to cover those these dark squares and it's going to be pretty useful. But now the problem is that he can play queen to e6, and he's not only attacking my e4 pawn, as you can see, he's also attacking my a2 pawn, which is a pretty big problem because I can't defend both. Well, I could probably hold a draw here in this position, but anyways, he didn't see this move, queen to e6, and he just played h5, which is, as you know, a useful move, as I said, but he had queen to e6, but okay, whatever. Now it was the moment to actually worry about this e4 pawn and a2 pawn, which can be attacked, but I still didn't see this. I played h4, and now he had the possibility to win by playing queen to e6, just attacking my 2 pawns again. And now the point is also that if I try to somehow give him a perpetual check here, now he can go to this h7 square after playing h5. Because without playing h5, I have some, for example, after queen to e6, and if I play something like this, just for example, if he takes my a2 pawn, I could have some perpetual check ideas on the dark squares. But now, after playing this h5 move, this wouldn't be possible. But okay, he of course didn't play queen to e6, he played king to h7. And now I quickly went to this f6 square, which is a pretty good square, as you can see. His dark squares are pretty weak, and that's also one more reason why this position should be a draw. Now, since he can't move his queen, really, because his f7 pawn is going to be in pretty big danger, he decided to push his pawns, and he played c5. Now, I just played a3 to prevent him from playing the move b4, which was a nice move. And he just played his king back to g8 because he wants to, of course, protect his f7 pawn, so he can't move the queen somewhere. And I started with my own counterplay and I played e5. And with this move, I'm also allowing him to give me a check on this d5 square. And now I just protected my queen with queen to f3. And now I just want to show you one amazing line that I had. If he took this pawn here on e5, and if I took this pawn here on b7, and he probably takes my pawn here on b2, right? And after a4, which is a stunning move here, he of course can't take because he loses the queen. If he plays b4, which seems the most logical, I just play a5. I just go up the board and he has no chance here. Because after queen to a2, trying to promote his own pawn, I'm really faster, as you can see. I go up the board, he goes, I go, and so on. And as you can see, I'm faster. I take the queen with a check, he has to move, and it's over. So this would be very nice, but okay, this didn't happen. He actually took the pawn, and I took his pawn, but now he didn't take my pawn on b2, but he played c4. And now this position is completely drawn. If you want to draw immediately, like I did, because okay, here you can't really play for a win with white, I just played a4 and just challenging his pawns here. And the point is that if he does nothing, I'm going to just take his pawn here on b5. And if he takes my pawn, like he did, I can play queen to c8 check, for example, and when he moves the king, I just take the pawn, and now it's a draw. He takes my pawn, I take his pawn, and here we agreed to a draw. Now this was a very interesting game with very little mistakes, almost a perfect game. Here this move queen to c3 was a mistake, and then h4 in this position. But okay, what can you do? I mean, he didn't see it, so it is okay. But overall, a very interesting game. Interesting to just try my new opening line, opening variation for the first time, and it was, yeah, pretty cool to play it. So I hope you guys learned something from it and also enjoyed it. And if you did, please share it, like it, and I'll see you in the next video.